All right, curious minds, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're diving headfirst into one of those truly epic questions, the kind that's kept philosophers, mystics, and, well, even modern thinkers scratching their heads for millennia. Is there one universal truth hiding in plain sight, connecting all the world's great religions and spiritual paths?
It's a massive question.
It is. It's a bold claim, and we're going to peel back the layers today to see what Aldous Huxley has to say about it.
Right.
Our compass for this journey, our primary source material for this deep dive, is Aldous Huxley's profound and frankly truly ambitious work, The Perennial Philosophy.
A classic, really.
Definitely. Now, for those of you looking for a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed on this sprawling concept, maybe with some surprising facts and insights that cut through all the noise, all the information overload,
Yeah, there's a lot of...
you've absolutely landed in the right spot. Our mission here is clear. We're going to explore Huxley's central argument that mystics from every spiritual tradition you can possibly imagine, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, Sufi, and so many others, have all independently pointed to the same fundamental reality.
The same core experience, essentially.
Exactly. He calls this a divine ground, and he posits that it's simultaneously immanent.
Meaning like deeply present within us and in the world.
Yeah, right here in the fabric of everything, and also transcendent.
So beyond our normal understanding, beyond the everyday senses.
Precisely. It's a grand vision of unity, isn't it?
It truly is. What's particularly audacious and frankly quite captivating here isn't just the sheer scope of Huxley's claim, but the incredible academic rigor.
Right. He really did his homework.
Oh, absolutely. The meticulous care with which he gathers evidence. He literally scours texts and accounts across millennia and diverse cultures to support this idea.
So he's not just like philosophizing in an armchair.
Not at all. He's building a compelling, deeply researched case from the direct lived experiences of humanity's most profound spiritual explorers. And crucially, this isn't merely an academic exercise, something confined to dusty library shelves.
It has real-world relevance.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, in a world that often feels incredibly fragmented by differing beliefs, ideologies, even geopolitical divides,
Which it definitely does.
the search for unifying truth, like the perennial philosophy, offers not only deep intellectual insight into our shared human experience, but also potentially a profound basis for social harmony and mutual understanding.
Finding that common ground.
Yeah, finding that common spiritual ground quite literally in an increasingly complex global landscape. It matters.
Absolutely. And Huxley himself was pretty clear that ignoring this common ground, this universal thread, comes with genuine danger.
He was quite forceful about that.
He observed what he termed theological imperialism, a kind of narrow-minded religious provincialism, as a real menace to world peace.
Theological imperialism, that's a strong term.
It is. Think about it. A century or two ago, many European scholars, for instance, were quite ignorant of Sanskrit, Pali, or Chinese spiritual texts. Just didn't know them.
Right, limited access language barriers.
But Huxley argued that today, in our interconnected world, with abundant translations readily available for anyone to access,
You can find almost anything online or in libraries.
such ignorance has become, in his powerful words, voluntary and deliberate, and therefore absurd and discreditable.
Wow, so no excuses anymore.
Basically, yeah, is no longer an acceptable excuse. He saw a tangible danger in humanity, focusing exclusively, let's say, on Judeo-Christian traditions, while largely ignoring the vast, rich tapestry of Eastern spiritual insights.
Right, missing huge parts of the picture.
It's like trying to understand the entirety of Earth's geography by only ever studying one continent and dismissing all the others as irrelevant.
That's a great analogy.
You're missing an enormous illuminating part of the picture, and crucially, you're fostering a sense of separation rather than connection.
Precisely. Huxley believed that overcoming this kind of provincialism, this intellectual and spiritual insularity, was absolutely crucial for achieving global peace.
Not just nice to have, but crucial.
Yes. And he wasn't talking about superficial interfaith dialogue either, just pleasantries. He laid out 4 very specific and frankly rather radical conditions he felt were necessary for humanity to achieve lasting world peace.
Okay, let's hear them. This sounds important.
It is. These conditions move beyond mere tolerance to a much deeper shared understanding of existence itself.
Right.
First, he argued for the acceptance of the same true philosophy of life by most human beings.
Okay, true philosophy of life. What does that mean exactly? Not everyone joining one religion.
No, exactly. It's not about everyone converting to a single monolithic religion. Rather, it's about a global recognition and acceptance of universal underlying spiritual reality, a shared fundamental truth beneath the surface differences.
A profound shift from competing narratives.
To a shared understanding, yeah. Second, this perennial philosophy, as he termed it, must be explicitly recognized as the highest common factor, the fundamental shared spiritual DNA, if you will, in all world religions.
So finding the essence.
Discerning the timeless essence beneath the culturally specific forms. That's key.
Okay. What was the third?
Third, and this is particularly insightful, I think, he called for the renunciation of what he called idolatrous time philosophies within each faith.
Idolatrous time philosophies. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. Think of these as confusing the historical packaging of a spiritual message with the eternal universal truth it contains.
Like mistaking the finger pointing at the moon for the moon itself.
Exactly. It's when a particular historical event, a specific cultural manifestation, or a rigid dogma becomes an idol in itself, overshadowing the timeless universal essence of the teaching.
And causing division.
Precisely. It's literally worshiping time-bound concepts rather than the eternal.
Okay, that makes sense. And the fourth?
And fourth, he advocated for a worldwide rejection of political pseudo-religions.
Political pseudo-religions, like ideologies acting like religions.
Exactly. These are ideologies that often promise a utopian future on Earth, placing the supreme good in some idealized future state of society. Think extreme nationalism or certain revolutionary ideologies.
Right, promising heaven on earth eventually.
And in doing so, they frequently justify present iniquity, violence, or oppression as a necessary means to achieve that future.
The ends justify the means.
Right. These ideologies, Huxley argued, become functional religions, but without a genuine spiritual core and often with devastating consequences.
That's chillingly relevant sometimes.
It is. His analysis here is truly profound because it pushes us to consider the practical and not just the spiritual benefits of such a shared understanding.
How so?
Well, when he talks about renouncing time philosophies, he's pointing directly to the way of rigid adherence to historical events or specific cultural manifestations of faith can blind us to the universal essence. It fuels conflict.
It creates us versus them.
Absolutely. And it's worth noting Huxley practiced what he preached in terms of looking broadly, his own extensive bibliography. It's a testament to his eclectic and truly global approach.
Who did he include?
Oh, figures like Rumi, the renowned 13th century Persian Sufi mystic.
A favorite of many.
Jan van Rysbroek, a 14th century Flemish Christian mystic whose writings influenced people like Saint Teresa of Avila.
Yes.
And Saint Francois de Sales, a 17th century French Catholic bishop known for his emphasis on everyday piety. He drew from everywhere.
So he wasn't just focused on one stream.
Not at all. He demonstrated that this isn't about one tradition winning, but about recognizing the shared profound wisdom across all of them, thereby laying a groundwork for genuine peace.
That's a truly powerful and ambitious framework. So with this understanding of Huxley's call for a universal philosophy, the next logical step is to ask, what is this core concept, this fundamental reality that underpins all existence?
Right, the divine ground itself.
Exactly. How do these vastly different traditions, these mystics from disparate corners of the globe in different eras, how do they articulate it? Because, as you said, they often use entirely different languages, different metaphors, different stories.
But Huxley posits they're all pointing to the same singular truth.
Yeah. What does that truth actually look like through their eyes?
That's the crux of it, and it's where the sources truly start to echo one another in surprising ways. We can clearly see this divine ground articulated in, well, a few key ways.
Okay.
Sometimes in abstract philosophical terms, sometimes as a supreme personal being, and also as an immanent, ever-present reality within us all.
Let's start with the philosophical side, the abstract one.
Okay, for instance, if we look at the philosophical one and the concept of emanation, we turn to ancient Greece and the Neoplatonist philosopher Plotinus.
It's okay.
He describes the one as the absolute first principle, the most perfect of all things, and the first power. It's an ultimate unity that is beyond being, beyond thought.
Hard to even talk about then.
Extremely. Yet it is the source from which everything else emanates, like light from a sun, without diminishing the source itself.
Okay, like an overflowing fountain.
That's a good image. He explains that it generates other powers, and everything imitates the principle according to its capacity by tending towards eternity and goodness.
So everything is drawn back to it, in a way.
In a way, yes. And what's truly profound here is his emphasis that unity is prior to substance and would generate the substance.
What does that mean, prior to substance?
It means substance isn't a thing that then becomes one, but rather is one being from its very origin. Unity comes first. This abstract one is the ultimate undifferentiated source, the ground of all being that gives rise to all diversity.
Wow. Okay, that's deep. Do we see parallels elsewhere?
Absolutely. We find a remarkable parallel in the Upanishads, the foundational texts of Hindu philosophy.
Right, with Brahman and Atman.
Exactly. Here, the concepts of Brahman and Atman illuminate the divine ground. Creation, in this context, is not ex nihilo, not out of nothing.
Which is different from some Western ideas.
Right. It's conceived more as emanation, begetting, or the ordering of a chaotic original material. The supreme deity, Brahman, is identified with various forms. Agni, the fire god; Datsi, the creator; Aditi, Rudra; Savit,
Different names, different aspects.
showcasing how diverse paths and understandings lead to the same ultimate reality. But perhaps the most potent insight for our discussion is the idea of Atman.
The self within.
Yes, as one, quote, beautifully captures it, the one that, triumphing, moves about in dream, is the self. This is the immortal, the fearless. This is Brahman.
So the individual self is the universal self.
That's the core realization. This speaks directly to the immanent aspect of the divine ground, the divine spark, the eternal, fearless self, Atman, dwelling within each of us, which is ultimately identical with the universal spirit, Brahman.
It's amazing how Plotinus, through philosophy and the Upanishads, through maybe more intuitive insight, arrive at such similar places.
It really is. It suggests a deep shared human intuition about ultimate reality, regardless of the intellectual framework used to describe it. A convergence.
So on one hand, we have this abstract one, or Brahman, as the ultimate undifferentiated source. That's a deep philosophical concept. But then other traditions express this divine ground through a more personal, supreme being, don't they?
They absolutely do, and it speaks to the diverse ways humanity apprehends the divine. It makes it perhaps more relatable for many.
How do they connect to this singular reality, and what does that relationship look like?
Well, take, for instance, the Bhagavad Gita, a central scripture in Hinduism. Here, Krishna, as the supreme personality of Godhead, clearly states,
What does Krishna say?
I am the generating seed of all existences. There is no being, moving or non-moving, that can exist without me.
That's pretty unequivocal, the source of everything.
Absolutely. The singular ultimate source, the energetic origin point. And Krishna's nature is characterized with the Sanskrit term Saksidananda Vigraha.
Can you break that down? Saksidananda Vigraha.
Sure. It means eternal,
Sat.
full of knowledge, and full of bliss, Ananda, in a spiritual form, Vigraha.
Eternity, knowledge, bliss.
Yes. This isn't just a description of attributes. It's a profound statement about the very nature of the ultimate reality, not just powerful or intelligent, but inherently joyful and eternally conscious.
Which contrasts with our own experience often.
Sharply, it contrasts with our perishable, ignorant, and often miserable material bodies and minds. The spiritual goal in this tradition, as stated, is that one who thinks of Ken at the time of his death goes to Kutnya, attaining a Saksdananda body.
A body of pure eternity, knowledge, and bliss.
Exactly. This emphasizes a personal relationship with the divine, yet one that is still intrinsically connected to the universal source of all.
Okay. What about in the Abrahamic traditions, like Islam?
Similarly, in the Quran, Allah is declared the creator of all things, the guardian of all things. To him belong the reigns of the heavens and earth.
The absolute sovereign.
Yes. The foundational call of Islam is absolute monotheism, tawhid, to believe in but one God and to be blameless of what you associate with him. This powerfully underscores the singular transcendent source.
But is there immanence there, too? Presence in the world?
Yes, definitely. The Quran also highlights God's immanence through creation itself, inviting deep reflection. It notes that the creation of the heavens and the earth and the rotation of night and day are sure signs for people possessed of minds.
So looking at nature reveres God's presence.
It points to God's subtle but undeniable presence interwoven into the very fabric and predictable order of the natural world. It's a call to see the divine reflected in the everyday.
And Christianity.
Augustine.
Even in Christian theology, Augustine of Hippo, in his seminal work Confessions, speaks of God creating heaven and earth from unformed matter.
Creating order from chaos.
Right. He describes the changeable universe where periods of time arise from changes in things, and crucially, he sees God's hand in bringing order out of this formless state. So while the specific theological frameworks differ across these traditions, some speak of emanation, others of direct creation.
The core idea remains. What connects all these sources is the fundamental idea of a singular ultimate source or ground of being. This source is either immanent in creation, the transcendent cause of it, or, as often seems to be the case, both.
A universal wellspring.
It's a remarkable convergence on the idea of a universal wellspring of all existence.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Pulling together these different threads into a common tapestry of understanding. So we've discussed this transcendent creator and the philosophical one, but let's zoom in a bit further, because a core aspect of the perennial philosophy is not just this external ultimate reality, but also the idea of the divine within us.
The immanent aspect, yeah. That's crucial.
What sources particularly speak to this deeply personal, immanent divine presence, suggesting that this ultimate reality isn't just out there, but an intrinsic part of who we are?
This is truly where the concept becomes a lived reality for many, because it speaks to an inherent connection that many believe we all share. It makes it personal.
Right.
One powerful example comes from A Course in Miracles.
Okay, what does it say?
It explicitly states, "You can encounter only part of yourself because you are part of God, who is everything. His power and glory are everywhere, and you cannot be excluded from them."
You cannot be excluded. That's powerful.
It is. It goes on to affirm that all strength is in God and therefore in you, and that God does not will anyone to suffer for a wrong decision, including you, having provided the means for undoing it.
So an inherent connection, an inherent capacity for correction.
Yes. It emphasizes an unbreakable connection to the divine, suggesting that the divine isn't just a distant entity, but an intrinsic, powerful part of our very being, an inner wellspring of strength, guidance, and unconditional love.
Okay. Any other examples?
Hermann Hesse's classic novel, Siddhartha, offers a beautiful narrative exploration of this realization.
Siddhartha's journey.
Exactly. His spiritual journey leads him to a profound understanding, particularly about the nature of Atman. He concludes.
What's the realization?
There is just one knowledge. This is everywhere. This is Atman. This is within me and within you and within every creature.
The same self everywhere.
Yes. But what's particularly striking is his conclusion that this profound knowledge has no worser enemy than the desire to know it than learning.
Wait, learning is the enemy. That sounds counterintuitive.
It does, but he's contrasting formal religious study or intellectual pursuit with direct experience. He finds this truth by learning from myself, becoming his own student to find the secret of Siddhartha.
So it's about inner discovery, not just book learning.
Precisely. A deeply personal, experiential realization of immanent truth that transcends doctrines and dogmas. He ultimately realizes that this Atman, this divine self, is not only within him, but interwoven into all things. The river, the trees, all living beings.
That's beautiful.
Then there's Gary Zukov, who, in The Seat of the Soul, draws a crucial distinction between external power.
Like money, status.
Exactly. Transient things like money, status, possessions, and authentic power.
Okay, what's authentic power?
He defines authentic power as energy that is formed by the intentions of the soul. It is light shaped by love and compassion, guided by wisdom.
Light shaped by love. That's evocative.
It is. And crucially, he asserts that love, compassion, and wisdom do not come from the personality. They are experiences of the soul.
So the soul is the source, the connection.
He directly implies that the soul itself is a conduit, a direct, unfiltered connection to this divine ground within us. It's a source of profound, authentic power that transcends the transient ego and connects us to something far greater.
So all these perspectives, ancient texts, modern teachings,
they coalesce around the idea that the divine is not merely external, but intimately woven into the fabric of our very being, an accessible reality within.
That's a powerful idea. That the divine isn't just an abstract concept to be studied or a distant being to be worshipped, but a living reality to be experienced.
Exactly. The shift from knowing about it to knowing it.
So, with this understanding of a universal divine ground, which is both transcendent and immanent, the natural question becomes, how do individuals actually go about realizing it? How do they move from intellectual assent to direct experience?
Right. How do you bridge that gap?
Yeah. Here's where it gets truly fascinating. Because this is where the deep philosophical truths shift from abstract theory into lived, transformative experience through mystical practices and profound inner work.
Indeed, and across diverse traditions, we see remarkably similar threads in these mystical paths to realization, even if the language and cultural expressions differ significantly.
Let's start with Christian mysticism. How do they approach this?
Okay. Christian mysticism often emphasizes a direct union with God through contemplation, purification, and intense devotion, a path of love, often.
Like St. Teresa of Avila.
Exactly. St. Teresa of Avila, a 16th century Spanish Carmelite nun, provides vivid accounts of ecstatic states. She describes a state where all things are seen and contained in God.
Seeing everything in God, what was that like?
This vision, she says, is of sovereign clearness, but so subtle, so overwhelming that the understanding cannot grasp it. She experienced moments of profound insight, like intuitively understanding how one God can be in three persons.
Which baffles theologians for centuries.
Right. And feeling unspeakable happiness. She notes that the deliciousness of some of these states seems to be beyond anything known in ordinary consciousness, with intellect and senses sometimes swooning away in these highest states of ecstasy.
Wow. Sounds almost overwhelming, like losing yourself.
It does, like trying to pour the ocean into a teacup. For her, God's immanence was a palpable reality, a direct knowing that God was in all things by presence and power and essence. This isn't theoretical. It's a direct, overwhelming, deeply embodied experience of divine omnipresence.
What about St. John of the Cross? He's often paired with her.
Yes, her contemporary. He provides a complementary, though equally rigorous, perspective with his concept of the dark night of the soul.
Ah, the famous dark night. That sounds less ecstatic.
It is. He explains spiritual purgation as a necessary process of darkness and suffering that, paradoxically, enlightens it again with a brighter and intenser light.
So darkness leads to light.
In this intense purification, the soul feels itself to be keenly and sharply wounded in strong divine love, and to have a certain realization and foretaste of God. He describes true contemplation as a secret, peaceful, and loving infusion from God, allowing the soul to become wholly spiritual, detaching from the sensual desires and attachments of the world.
Letting go of the ego's grip.
Moving towards pure spiritual union. This journey, though arduous and often painful, is presented as a direct, if difficult, path to experiencing the divine ground. Necessary suffering, in a way.
And what about practices for everyday people? Not everyone has visions or goes through the dark night.
Well, there's the incredibly influential practice of the Jesus Prayer, as beautifully described in The Way of a Pilgrim, an anonymous 19th century Russian spiritual classic.
A pilgrim trying to pray constantly.
Exactly. The pilgrim's central quest is to pray without ceasing, echoing the biblical command from 1 Thessalonians 5.1 The Philokalia, a collection of spiritual texts revered in Eastern Orthodoxy, teaches this interior prayer of the heart.
What's the prayer itself?
The constant repetition of, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, or variations of it.
Repeating it over and over.
Yes. This constant calling on the name of Jesus Christ, when done with deep intention and presence, is believed to purify the heart, eventually becoming a latter book, Heavenly Jerusalem.
Wow, it becomes everything.
It's described as an awesome and extraordinary ascetic effort to guard the soul, requiring total vigilance and detachment from distracting thoughts and desires, ultimately leading to an experiential knowledge of God infused directly into the heart.
So these Christian mystics, though diverse, all point to intense inner transformation.
Yes, intense inner work as the means to experience the divine.
It's truly fascinating how these Christian mystics describe such an intense, almost physical, and transformative process. Do we see similar experiences of intense embodied presence, or maybe the dissolution of the ego self, in Eastern mystical traditions? Or do they offer entirely different paths?
Oh, absolutely. The expressions might differ due to cultural context, but the core experience of transcending the ordinary self to realize a greater, unified reality is a universal thread woven through Eastern traditions as well.
Like with Ram Dass and Maharaji.
Exactly. Ram Dass, the American spiritual teacher, recounts his life-altering encounter with his guru Maharaji in India. Ram Dass, initially drawn to Buddhism, which appealed to his psychologist's mind,
Right, he was Richard Alpert, a Harvard psychologist.
found himself utterly transformed by Maharaji's overwhelming and, well, unconditional love. He describes how this experience opened my heart to the guru, seeing a place within him that reflected my true self. That spiritual self is the source of unconditional love.
So it was an experience of love that broke through his intellectual framework.
Completely. Maharaji, existing in a state called Sahaj Samadhi.
Can you explain Sahaj Samadhi?
It's often described as a permanent, effortless state of enlightenment, meaning he was not identified with this world or the transient ego. He exemplified this profound state of transcendent awareness that profoundly inspired such realization in others.
So less about teaching doctrine, more about transmission.
It seemed to be, in that case, a direct, heart-opening transmission of presence and love.
What about Tibetan Buddhism? That seems quite complex.
It is rich and complex. From the Tibetan tradition, the Tibetan Book of the Dead speaks of a reality where mind and phenomena are temporally manifest Buddhas.
Whoa, a temporally manifest Buddhas. What does that mean?
It means that the enlightened mind is our inherent natural state right now, and all phenomena are manifestations of that pure awareness. It's not something to attain in the future, it's already here.
But obscured by ignorance.
Exactly. Often obscured only by our ignorance and mental defilements. The text outlines profound paths like Mahayoga and Sachin, with techniques such as cutting through resistance and all-surpassing realization.
Techniques to see reality clearly.
Yes, specifically designed to actualize this inherent purity and transform ordinary, confused psychological states into enlightened wisdom. The goal is to pierce through the veil of illusion and directly perceive the enlightened mind as our natural, ever-present reality.
And the Dhammapada, a core Buddhist text.
The Dhammapada also outlines a clear path of purity through fundamental insights. It teaches, of paths, the eightfold is the best. Of truths, the four statements.
The Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path.
Right. Foundational. These truths are key to understanding suffering and liberation, leading to core insights such as all sakkharas, conditioned phenomena, or mental formations are transient.
Impermanent.
All sakkharas are suffering or unsatisfactory.
Beautiful.
Or profoundly, all dhammas phenomena or the ultimate nature of things are without self.
Anatta. No permanent independent self.
Exactly. This realization of impermanence, suffering, and non-self leads to a profound detachment from misery and ultimately transcends it. The Eightfold Path is presented as the best path for purity of vision, emphasizing a disciplined, experiential approach to inner liberation.
Freeing oneself from clinging to a false sense of self.
That's the essence of it.
So whether it's the rigorous self-denial and union of Christian mystics, the unconditional love experience with a guru, or the deep insights into impermanence and non-self from Buddhist teachings, there's a clear emphasis on intense inner work and transformation.
Yes, the path involves profound inner shifts.
Are there also more universal, perhaps less tradition-specific practices that modern teachers point to for cultivating this inner awareness and connecting to the divine ground? Because, let's face it, for many people today, the formal structures of traditional religions might feel less accessible.
Yes, very much so, and these often resonate deeply with contemporary seekers precisely because they are presented in accessible, non-dogmatic ways, often rooted in universal human experience.
Like Eckhart Tolle.
Exactly. Eckhart Tolle, in The Power of Now, emphasizes that it is impossible to have a problem when your attention is fully in the now.
That sounds simple, but maybe not easy.
Right. He suggests that negativity and emotional pain, what he dramatically calls the pain body, an accumulation of past painful experiences, are transmuted through acceptance combined with the light of your presence, your sustained attention.
Acceptance and presence.
Yes. He recommends simple yet profound practices like conscious breathing as an anchor to quiet the mind and connect with the inner body, even visualizing oneself as being immersed in a luminous substance, a sea of consciousness.
Shifting out of thought into awareness.
The key is to shift out of identification with the incessant stream of thought and into pure, alert presence.
What about Tara Brach? She talks a lot about acceptance, too.
Yes, Tara Brach, with her widely influential concept of radical acceptance, offers a powerful, embodied approach. She advocates for mindfulness centered on the body as the first foundation of mindfulness.
Focusing on the body. Why is that the first foundation?
Because it anchors you firmly in the present moment, away from mental narratives. Her practices involve recognizing thoughts and emotions as they arise, often unpleasant ones, and then gently returning to immediate sensory experience, the breath, bodily sensations.
Just noticing and returning.
Yes, but crucially, this is combined with compassion, the practice of being softly and kindly present with our open wounds, rather than resisting or judging them.
So not just awareness, but kind awareness.
Exactly. It's about meeting ourselves exactly where we are without judgment, which allows for healing, deeper presence, and a profound connection to our authentic self, which she sees as interwoven with universal compassion.
That sounds very healing. And Michael Singer. The untethered soul.
Michael A. Singer offers a striking and refreshingly direct approach that cuts through much spiritual complexity. He proposes that unconditional happiness is the highest technique there is.
Whoa. Unconditional happiness is a technique.
Yeah, it's a radical framing. He states, you don't have to learn Sanskrit or read any scriptures. You don't have to renounce the world. You just have to really mean it when you say that you choose to be happy. And you have to mean it regardless of what happens.
Regardless of circumstances, that sounds extremely difficult.
It does. But he presents this as a direct and sure a path to awakening, implying that a steadfast internal commitment to happiness, irrespective of external circumstances, is itself a profound spiritual practice, a radical act of inner freedom.
Just choosing it.
Choosing it and meaning it deeply. He also describes moving in the Tao, a state of being always present, where life becomes absolutely simple, guided by an invisible thread that passes through everything. This speaks to a spontaneous, effortless alignment with the flow of existence once inner obstacles and resistance are removed.
Letting go and trusting the flow?
Essentially, yes.
And William James, the psychologist, did he observe similar things?
Yes, let's bring in the keen observations of pioneering psychologist William James. In his work, The Varieties of Religious Experience, he describes a universal faith state experienced by mystics and deeply spiritual individuals.
A faith state.
Okay. He notes how, in these profound experiences, the sense of estrangement breaks down. The individual finds himself at one with all creation. He lives in the universal life. He and man, he and nature, he and God are one.
That sounds exactly like the unity we've been discussing.
Precisely. This confidence, trust, union with all things is described as an affective experience, an emotional feeling state that provides unshakable certitude to religious dogmas, often independently of rational argument or intellectual proof.
So the feeling comes first, and then maybe the belief.
Or the feeling validates the belief, gives it unshakable conviction. And James makes a crucial point, noting that the absence of definite sensible images is positively insisted on by the mystical authorities in all religions as the sine qua non
Essential condition
of a successful orison or contemplation of the higher divine truths. Meaning, it's not about seeing visions or hearing voices necessarily. It points to a direct, non-conceptual apprehension of reality, a pure, unmediated experience of the divine ground that transcends the limitations of the senses and the intellect.
A direct knowing.
A direct knowing, a direct experience of unity beyond words and images.
Wow, that covers a truly immense amount of ground, from intense purification and ecstatic visions to radical acceptance and simply choosing happiness, all pointing to this deeper unified reality.
It's a rich tapestry of human experience.
It's clear how personal transformation is at the heart of realizing the perennial philosophy. But what does this all mean for us, for you, listening right now, in the messy, complicated fabric of daily life?
Right. How does it translate?
How does this philosophy of universal shared divine ground extend beyond personal experience and inner peace to genuinely affect our relationships, our communities, and society at large? Because if it truly is universal, it should have universal implications.
This is truly where the rubber meets the road, as you said, because the perennial philosophy isn't just about individual enlightenment or personal solace. It has profound ethical and societal implications.
Okay, how so?
If we recognize this shared divine ground, this fundamental oneness, it fundamentally changes how we interact with others and the entire world. The me versus them mentality begins to dissolve. It has to.
It reframes everything.
Absolutely. A Course in Miracles makes this explicit, articulating a radical shift in perception. It states, your brother is your friend because his father created him like you. There is no difference.
No difference. That's a strong statement.
It is. It goes on to say, you have been given to your brother that love might be extended, not cut off from him. The text suggests that our deeply ingrained belief in specialness.
Seeing yourselves as separate, maybe better?
Exactly. Seeing ourselves as fundamentally separate, unique, or superior to others creates illusions and, tragically, gives rise to the perception of an enemy, thereby hindering true connection and love.
The belief in specialness creates enemies.
That's the argument. It asks, could you attack your brother if you chose to see no specialness of any kind between you and him? It's a profound challenge to our ego-driven distinctions.
It really makes you think.
Building on this, the renowned psychoanalyst and philosopher Erich Fromm, in his exploration of love, perfectly illustrates this shift in perspective in what he calls mature love.
Mature love. How does he define that?
He describes a crucial transition from a more conditional I love because I am loved to the more expansive I am loved because I love.
Shifting the source of love from external validation to internal capacity.
Precisely. And even more profoundly from I love you because I need you to I need you because I love you.
That flips the usual script.
It does. This mature love, rooted in a deeper understanding of connection, actively overcomes egocentricity. It's a recognition of the needs of the other as equally important as one's own, leading to a sense of new union, of sharing, of oneness.
That sounds like the perennial philosophy in action in relationships.
It truly is a tangible manifestation of living from the divine ground, where the boundaries between self and other soften and blur.
What about M. Scott Peck, The Road Less Traveled? He talked a lot about love, too.
Yes. Dr. M. Scott Peck offers another insightful definition, portraying love not just as a feeling, but as work or courage directed toward the nurture of our own or another's spiritual growth.
Love as work, as effort.
Yes. And he makes a fascinating connection between romantic love and mystical experience. He suggests that the temporary loss of ego boundaries we experience in falling deeply in love.
That feeling of merging with someone.
Right. He says it offers a foretaste of, and therefore an incentive for, the more lasting mystical ecstasy that can be ours after a lifetime of love.
So romantic love can be a doorway.
A hint.
A hint. An incentive. This connects our most intimate human experiences, our longing for connection, to the broader spiritual journey, implying that the act of loving itself is a powerful path to realizing the divine ground.
And compassion, how does that fit in? Pema Chodron. The Buddhist nun and spiritual teacher Pema Chodron offers practical wisdom on compassion, which naturally flows from this sense of oneness. She says patience is the antidote to anger, a way to learn to love and care for whatever we meet on the path.
Meeting challenges with patience instead of anger.
Yes. She encourages seeing suffering as suffering without immediately solidifying the sense of enemy or getting swept away by our outrage.
Which is so easy to do, getting swept away.
It is. This clearer vision, rooted in universal compassion that sees all beings as interconnected, leads directly to what she calls the cessation of suffering, both for ourselves and for others, as we stop contributing to the cycle of reactivity and separation.
Breaking the cycle.
Yes.
Are there older sources echoing this ethical dimension?
Definitely. Stepping back into medieval Christian mysticism, the anonymous 14th century text Theologia Germanica states that all self-will is sin.
Self-will, the ego wanting its own way.
Exactly. To find the highest good, one must seek goodness as goodness, and for the sake of goodness, not for love of the I, me, mine, self, and the like.
Seeking goodness for its own sake, not for personal gain.
Right. The truly humble person, it says, desires to become as not in himself, having no will, and that the eternal will may live in him. This profound call to surrender the ego, to dissolve the self-will into the eternal will, aligns perfectly with the idea of living from the divine ground.
Letting go of the small self for the larger reality.
Precisely. Where personal desires are subsumed by a greater universal good.
Even the Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius.
Even the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius, writing in the 2nd century AD, connects ethics to a universal order. He speaks of justice as the highest love to the supreme goodness and excellence and resignation to infinite wisdom, and next to this, a steady obedience to his will in all acts of beneficence and goodness to our fellows.
So recognizing a universal goodness naturally leads to good actions.
Yes. It demonstrates that the recognition of a universal supreme goodness, a rational divine order, naturally leads to ethical action, compassion, and a commitment to the well-being of others.
So all these sources, different times, different traditions.
They beautifully articulate how the realization of unity transforms our individual consciousness into a force for collective good. It's not just an inner state, it changes how you act in the world.
These insights into love, compassion, and the dissolution of ego make a clear and compelling case for how individual spiritual growth impacts our personal relationships and our immediate communities. But let's expand that lens even further.
Okay.
What about the really thorny global challenges we face as a species? Things like war, widespread poverty, resource depletion, systemic inequality. Does this vision of unity, this perennial philosophy, offer a tangible path to addressing those massive, seemingly intractable problems?
It absolutely does, and quite explicitly in some of our sources, offering a radical shift in perspective for global challenges.
Like?
Conversations with God, for example, makes a very direct and powerful argument.
What's the argument?
It states, "You and all others are one, and this is a level of knowingness that you have not attained. It argues that humanity's fundamental misunderstanding of this oneness is at the root of our global predicaments.
Our failure to really know we're one.
Yes. It sharply criticizes what it calls humanity's primitive every man for himself mentality, which, when extrapolated to nations, leads to plundering the earth, raping her of her resources, exploiting her people.
Strong words again.
Very. This isn't just presented as a moral failing, it's seen as a logical consequence of believing in fundamental separation.
If we think we're separate, we act separately, often selfishly.
Exactly. As a short-term answer to global violence and the endless cycle of conflict, it puts forward the idea of establishing a one-world government with a world court, whose verdicts cannot be ignored, supported by a world peacekeeping force.
Whoa, okay. That's a controversial idea for many.
Extremely. But the text clarifies this isn't about subjugation, but about creating a framework where power would then rest with the total group of nations, leveling the playing field and, crucially, requiring equitable resource sharing.
So shifting power from individual nations to the collective.
Right. The argument here is that without a unified understanding of our shared existence and a global mechanism to reflect that, nations will continue to act out of self-interest, leading to scarcity and conflict. It implies a radical shift from nationalistic self-interest to a global collective interest.
Driven by realizing we're all connected.
Driven by the profound understanding of fundamental oneness.
What's the underlying principle there?
The underlying principle is highlighted further. What you give to another, you give to yourself, and life is forgiving, and in order to do that, you need to be forgiving to others.
Giving and forgiving as reflections of oneness.
Yes. This perspective transforms our approach to global challenges from one of competition and scarcity to one of interconnectedness and generosity, where the well-being of the whole is recognized as absolutely integral to the well-being of the individual, and vice versa.
It's a radical vision.
It is. If we truly understood our oneness, if that moved from an intellectual concept to a lived reality for enough people, the motivations behind many of our most destructive global conflicts would simply dissolve.
It requires a fundamental shift in consciousness.
A massive one. But it offers a profound potential solution rooted in this perennial philosophy.
That's a truly profound vision, one that definitely challenges our current societal structures and assumptions about how the world works. But Huxley also warned us about what he called time philosophies and dogmatic views.
Right, the things that get in the way.
Exactly. Rigid interpretations of faith that can actually obscure this universal truth of the perennial philosophy. Okay, let's unpack this. What are some examples from our sources that highlight these limitations, where the focus on a particular historical context, specific commands, or a singular chosen group, rather than on universal unity, actively creates division and misunderstanding?
Huxley's time philosophies are essentially belief systems that become overly concerned with the transient, the historical, or the culturally specific, to the exclusion of the eternal and universal.
Getting stuck in the details, the outer forms.
Precisely. And we see powerful and at times unsettling contrasts in certain biblical narratives, for instance. Accounts from the books of Joshua and Samuel depict God commanding violent acts against specific enemies.
Right, the conquest narrative.
Yes. Joshua, for example, is described as having wiped out everything that breathed as something reserved for God, exactly as the Lord, the God of Israel, had commanded in the conquest of Canaan.
That's hard to reconcile with a God of universal love.
Very. Similarly, Saul is depicted as fighting enemies on every side with divine sanction. These narratives portray a God who fights for a specific chosen people, issuing explicit instructions for warfare, destruction, even ethnic cleansing in some interpretations.
Which stands in stark contrast to the perennial philosophy.
Absolutely. It contrasts with the universal love, non-differentiation, and the inherent oneness that are central to it. Such a God of battles is a tribal deity, limited in scope, not a universal ground of being for all.
What about specific rules like in the Torah?
The Torah further illustrates this focus on the specific rather than the universal with its incredibly detailed laws. Specific dietary laws, whatsoever parteth the hoof and is wholly cloven-footed and cheweth the cud, that may ye eat.
Very precise instructions.
And strict prohibitions, such as thou shalt not plant thee an Asherah, a sacred pole associated with a pagan goddess. Neither shalt thou set thee up a pillar, which the Lord thy God hateth. This extensive framework emphasizes a covenantal relationship with specific rules for a chosen people.
Defining identity and separation.
Yes, defining their identity and their separation from other nations. This differs significantly from the non-dogmatic, experiential, and universally applicable paths described by mystics seeking the divine ground.
So it creates boundaries.
This kind of framework, while providing order and identity for a group, inherently defines belonging and correct behavior through particular exclusive tenets, which can easily lead to theological imperialism when applied beyond its original context.
Making one group's rules the only right way.
Exactly. And Conversations with God offers a poignant critique of what it calls the jealous God myth.
The idea of a jealous God.
Yes, describing how the very idea of deity shifted over millennia from maybe a source of all love to a source of all fear. It outlines a mythological evolution.
How did it evolve, according to the text?
From an early goddess figure moved to a pantheon of gods and goddesses, and then, crucially, devolved to a jealous god who demanded, and no other god or else, and ultimately to a god of wrath.
That sounds like a downward spiral.
It's presented not as genuine divine revelation, but as a subversion of the true nature of love, arguing that the God you worship today, shaped by these historical and cultural narratives of fear and exclusivity, is how you got where you are now.
Wow. Basically saying our concept of God creates our reality.
That's the implication. This illustrates how time-bound, fear-based interpretations, often driven by human projections, can profoundly distort the perception of the divine away from universal love and unity, leading to conflict and division in its name.
It's clear how those narratives, focused on exclusivity and specific historical commands, can lead to division rather than unity. They almost become a barrier to recognizing the universal.
They absolutely can.
But beyond specific religious dogmas, what about the internal struggle? The ego's resistance, or the limitations of our own minds in accessing this universal truth? Because even if the truth is there, our inner world can certainly obscure it.
Absolutely. That's another critical aspect of these limitations. The internal time philosophies of our own minds and egos, the ways we get stuck in time.
How does that show up?
C.S. Lewis, in his brilliant satirical work, The Screwtape Letters, offers a chilling depiction of this.
Screwtape advising his nephew Demon.
Exactly. He describes the human reluctance to think about the enemy God when it involves facing and intensifying a whole vague cloud of half-conscious guilt.
We avoid looking at our own stuff.
Right. The patient, under the subtle influence of the demon wormwood, will want his prayers to be unreal, for he will dread nothing so much as effective contact with the enemy.
Wanting prayers to be unreal. That's insightful.
It highlights the ego's profound and often unconscious resistance to true spiritual surrender, to genuine contact with the divine ground. Our own internal mechanisms can actively prevent us from connecting with universal truth, preferring comfortable unreality and the illusion of control over the transformative, sometimes terrifying reality of divine presence.
Re-sabotage yourself.
In a way, yes. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the German theologian and pastor.
Who resisted the Nazis.
Yes. In The Cost of Discipleship, he speaks powerfully about costly grace, offering a stark contrast to what he calls cheap grace.
Cheap grace versus costly grace. What's the difference?
He emphasizes that when Christ calls a man, he bids him come and die. This isn't literal death, obviously, but a daily death to self, to ego, to worldly attachment.
By constant letting go.
Yes. He contrasts this with cheap grace, which he describes as making Martin Luther's desperate plea to sin boldly, an ethical principle, a kind of easy pardon without genuine transformation or sacrifice, like getting a free pass without changing.
Grace without discipleship.
Exactly. Costly grace, by contrast, involves a daily renunciation of sin and of every barrier which hinders them from following Christ. This isn't about achieving sinlessness, he clarifies.
Because that might be impossible for most.
Right. But about acknowledging daily sinfulness and truly trusting in grace, which seeks us and justifies us, sinners though we are, but after we have made the difficult, ongoing choice of discipleship.
So grace requires commitment, requires work.
It points to the profound internal work and sacrifice required to truly follow a spiritual path, a path often at odds with the ego's desire for an easy, unconditional pardon without the difficult work of inner transformation. It's about letting go of our own time philosophies, of personal comfort and spiritual shortcuts.
And Persig. Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance. How does that fit?
Robert M. Persig provides a philosophical lens to understand another type of internal limitation, the constraints of traditional rationality itself.
Rationality is a limitation.
He describes traditional rationality's insistence upon objectivity, a doctrine that there is a divided reality of subject and object, which, he argues, shuts out quality, his term for ultimate reality, the divine ground, that pre-rational sense of value or goodness.
So the subject-object split gets in the way of experiencing quality.
That's his argument. He concludes that the basic fault that underlies the problem of stuckness is traditional rationality's insistence upon objectivity. This discussion of quality and the subject-object duality is crucial.
How so?
When rationality insists on a strict subject-object duality, a fundamental separation between the observer and the observed, it prevents us from experiencing the unified, interconnected reality that the perennial philosophy describes. It keeps us separate.
Our way of thinking creates the separation.
Yes, and Persig explicitly notes, connecting back to our main theme, the one in India has got to be the same as the one in Greece. If it's not, you've made a mistake.
Wow, a direct echo of Huxley.
Exactly. It directly echoes Huxley's core premise that beneath the myriad forms, a singular truth resides. Our very way of thinking can be a limiting time philosophy if it's too rigidly bound to a limited, dualistic view of reality.
That's a powerful and truly thought-provoking synthesis. It really brings home how deeply ingrained some of these obstacles are, both externally in dogmatic traditions and internally within our own psychological makeup and rational frameworks.
They operate on multiple levels.
So what does this all mean when we pull it all together? We've journeyed through Aldous Huxley's profound vision, exploring how mystics and philosophers across an incredibly diverse array of traditions,
From ancient India, Greece,
to medieval Christian mystics and modern spiritual teachers, from Islamic Sufism to Buddhist enlightenment,
all pointed in their own unique ways to a single fundamental reality.
Yeah, we've seen how this divine ground is described as both transcendent, existing beyond our world and our comprehension,
Way beyond.
and immanent, residing deeply within us and woven into the very fabric of all creation.
Right here, right now.
And we've learned that despite different languages, different rituals, and vastly different historical contexts, a common thread of direct, transformative experience runs through these teachings.
The mystical core.
An experience that inevitably leads to unity, compassion, and true knowledge. This deep dive isn't just about ancient texts or abstract philosophy. It's about a living, accessible truth that can profoundly shape your life, your relationships, and your perception of the world right now.
Indeed. This entire exploration raises an important question for you, the listener, to ponder and perhaps integrate into your own life.
What's the question?
If, as Huxley and these diverse sources so compellingly suggest, the core of all major spiritual paths points to a universal, immanent, and transcendent divine ground, what implications does this profound understanding have for how you approach your own spiritual journey?
How does it change things personally?
How might it reshape your relationships with others, transcending perceived differences? And perhaps most crucially, in our fractured world, how might this recognition of fundamental unity inform and inspire your vision for achieving true peace?
Not just inner peace.
Not just in your own life, but globally. What does it demand of us?
Heavy questions. Important questions.
And to leave you with a provocative thought that builds on our discussion, Michael A. Singer, as we heard, tells us that unconditional happiness is the highest technique there is.
The radical choice for happiness.
Right. He claims it requires no scriptures, no renunciation, no complex practices, only the decision to be happy regardless of what happens, to release resistance to the flow of life.
So if this is truly such a direct and sure a path to awakening, if the divine ground is truly accessible through such a radical inner choice,
Then what?
what then prevents us in this very moment from choosing it?
Good question.
And how might that choice or our hesitation to make it reflect our current understanding and embodiment of the perennial philosophy's deepest truths?
What's holding us back from that unconditional happiness, if it's truly the path? Something to chew on.
A truly powerful question to ponder, and perhaps a personal challenge to explore. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Aldous Huxley's The Perennial Philosophy.
It's been fascinating to explore.
We hope this exploration has offered you new insights, sparked further curiosity, and encourages you to continue your own journey into these profound and unifying ideas. Until next time, keep diving deep.